Hey, folks, and welcome into episode 7 of the Longhorn Mailbag, answering your questions over on our horns247.com board. Let's go ahead and jump right into this one as Texas plays Alabama on Saturday. Biggest game of the season, and we've got our best segment, our new best segment on this show, presented to us once again by Rangers Dad. It's the True False segment. Last week's opener against Rice, True False. I didn't really do so well on that mailbag episode, so we're going to try to improve here this week. Starting off with Texas will hold Alabama to under 375 yards of total offense. I'm going to go true here. I think this is a very defensive oriented game. I don't really see either team scoring a lot of points. Texas held Alabama to 374 last year. I think it kind of stays around that range or below this season against the Crimson Tide at home. Number 2, Jalen Milroe will outperform Quinn Ewers. Now, this is one that I was going back and forth on a lot. I'm going to go true here, and this isn't necessarily a knock on Quinn Ewers. I just think that Jalen Milroe's ability with his legs is going to be the difference maker in this, and I think that when you look at a stat sheet, his rushing yards along with what could be his passing yards are going to stand out a lot more than Quinn Ewers' stat line would. So I'm going to go Jalen Milroe outperforms Ewers in this game. Not necessarily saying that Quinn Ewers is going to play bad. This could very well be a game where both quarterbacks look great and one just looks better because they got the win. I can definitely see that happening. But I think Jalen Milroe's ability to get out of the pocket when pressure comes and be able to burn past all kinds of defenders with his legs is the X factor in this decision. So another very close one there, but I'm saying Jalen Milroe in this game outperforms Quinn Ewers in that facet. This game will be decided by less than 10 points is our next one. I'm going to go true again here on this one. Like I mentioned earlier, this is going to be a very tight defensive game. I don't see either defense really letting the opposing offense run away with this one or rack up a bunch of points, make it a 2-3 possession game. So I think this one stays close from wire to wire, and both defenses make sure that neither offense gets out of hand. Number 4, Texas will force 2 turnovers. This was another one where I was kind of going back and forth. I said false last week against Rice, and they ended up getting 3. But I'm going to go false here. I think this is going to be a very disciplined game as well. Both teams know that they cannot turn the ball over and give the opposing offense a shot. So I think that's going to be the number one focus in this game. There was no turnovers at all in this game last year, and I think we see the same thing here. Now, you could argue that Alabama's inexperience at quarterback and running back and some of the wide receiver issues could lead to something. So would I be surprised if there was a turnover from Texas? No, but I think they're going to be disciplined in this game, so I'm going to go false there. Number 5, Bert Auburn will be perfect on all field goal attempts. I'm going to go true here. He was 4 for 5 in last year's game. The only miss came at the end of the first half, if you remember, when Alabama got a hand on a chip shot field goal that ultimately may have been the difference maker in that game. And if Texas had gotten that field goal, maybe they would have beaten Alabama. But he did miss one. He missed one field goal last week from 56 yards. That's a hard one to hit. I have confidence in Bert Auburn. I think he's been good. He was good last season. He'll be good again this season. So I'm saying true that Auburn will nail all his field goal attempts if he is to get any. Next up, Texas will rush for over 150 yards. I'm going false here. Did not really run the ball too well last week, and that's not necessarily the running back's fault. I think that the offensive line played less than good, to put it lightly. So I think if we see improved offensive line play, maybe some gaps can open up for the running backs, but I'm going to need to see a little bit more from both the O-line and the running backs themselves to really make me think about making this a true statement. So I'm going false here. Texas rushes for under 150 yards in this one. Last but not least, Texas will have 3 sacks. This one I'm going to go with true. I think Jalen Milroe still has some growing to do when it comes to changing protection up at the line of scrimmage. Struggled a little bit with it last week against Middle Tennessee State, and he got brought down 2 times because of it. So I think the Texas defensive line is going to be able to get pressure on him. They got pressure on Bryce Young a year ago. The only problem was bringing him down. And while Jalen Milroe is a more mobile quarterback, he's a bigger guy. So he's going to be a little bit easier of a target than Bryce Young is just because of his size and his stature. So I think Texas does get at least 3 sacks in this ball game on Saturday night. I know some of those may come across as hot takes, so don't come at me too much. Like I said, I wasn't accurate last week, so we'll see how I play this week. Hopefully, for my sake, much better. All right, next up from Average Jack. Why is AD Mitchell blocking for Jordan Whittington instead of vice versa? Well, Average Jack, I kind of had the same question. We watched the same game, and I was honestly wondering why on earth is AD Mitchell trying to make downfield blocks for Jordan Whittington and other receivers? And, obviously part of your job as a wide receiver is to block, especially in the run game, to try and create lanes for your running back to, get up the sideline and not have to deal with any corners or safeties that may be coming his way. But this clearly is an AD Mitchell strong suit. And we showed it several times throughout the game on Saturday against Rice. So I think Jordan Whittington is a very strong blocker. We especially saw that in the Oklahoma game last season when Longhorns won at 49-0. He had that big block for, I believe it was Keelan Robinson, going to the end zone, and where he just straight up threw an Oklahoma defensive back out of the club and just stared over him to allow Robinson to score. So I think it's going to be much better for this offense if AD Mitchell is the guy getting a screen pass, and you have Jordan Whittington blocking in front of him. That's a bigger guy, and you give it to a speedier guy out of the backfield because Texas loves those screens. They found Xavier Worthy on a couple of them. Need to work AD Mitchell into that game a little bit more. Have Jordan Whittington block for you downfield. I think very positive things are going to come from that if Texas wants to have success in that facet. Now, granted, this game against Rice was a chance for Steve Sarkisian to just kind of test some things out, and that may have been one of the things he wants to test out. How good of a blocker is AD Mitchell? Well, I think we learned our answer. It's not really his strong suit, so maybe just get him the ball in space and try to let others block for him, others who are maybe stronger in that facet of the game in order to let him cook, if you will. Next up, from Bishop ADV. Who will make the play? Now, the play is just a play in every game where it changes the momentum, or it makes you, when you think of the game afterwards, you think, man, that play was what won, insert team name here, the game. So since I can't predict the future and I don't know who's going to win this game for sure, I will give you one for each team, just to kind of keep in the back of your head while you're watching this game. I'll certainly have it on my mind. I think if the play was to come from someone on the Alabama side, it's going to be Jalen Milroe, and it's likely going to be on his legs. I do think Texas is going to be able to bring him down the backfield, like I mentioned earlier, but I don't think they can bring him down every time. I can definitely see Milroe escaping some of that pressure and just taking off past everyone. And if that happens, especially late in the game, I think that's going to be a massive impact, massive gut punch maybe. If this is a one-possession game or Alabama is trailing by 3 with under 4 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and Jalen Milroe runs out for a long touchdown, that's going to be crushing for Texas. And I think that would be the play and the biggest impact that could happen on a single play. Now, on the flip side for Texas, maybe a little bit of an unconventional answer. I don't know what you guys would pick. I'd love to hear in the comments section, but I'm going to say Jalen Catalon, and I'll talk about him a little bit more in the second when it comes to his first game in the opener against Rice. I think his playing style is perfectly set up for plays like this. He always is shot out of a cannon, plays extremely aggressively, hits very hard. We saw that his freshman year at Arkansas. It may have been part of why he has been injured so much, but the way that he plays is going to have an impact on this game. And if he's able to make a play, whether it be on just a big hit that could jar a fumble or an interception, or he just comes flying out of nowhere and picks off Jalen Milroe, that kind of energy that he's going to bring, that ferociousness, that toughness, I think is going to get this Texas team amped. And especially if it comes, like I mentioned with Milroe, with under 4 minutes to go, with Texas trailing by 3, for example, and he makes that big play for you, it's going to give you a lot of confidence. It's going to swing the momentum, and it's going to be the play that you look at the end of the game and say, that's what won Texas the game, for example. So Jalen Milroe for Alabama, Jalen Catalon for Texas. Now, just a couple of quick hitters here to answer some brief questions on the board before we wrap this episode up. Dr. Coach him up asked him if for a Cole Hudson update, like I mentioned earlier. Chip Brown reported earlier this week that Cole Hudson should be good to go on Saturday. That's going to be big for the offensive line depth for Texas. OV05 asked, did Catalon play on Saturday? I've seen this a lot. Yes, Jalen Catalon did play on Saturday, played 18 snaps in the opener. Probably got a little bit more limited just because the staff wants to keep him healthy for this game against Alabama. Didn't want to have any risks at all. Jaron Thompson didn't play too much either against Rice. They were rotating really heavily, especially back there at safety. Derek Williams, the true freshman, was actually the leader snap-wise in that safety group with 26. So probably just trying to keep everybody healthy and happy as they head for a much bigger matchup in Tuscaloosa this Saturday. Last but not least, Chip Brown also reported earlier this week that Cedric Baxter was back at practice this week and participated. Should be good to go as well on Saturday. Remember, he broke out for a 30-plus yard run, kind of had the ball land on his ribs a little bit, was in some pain, didn't play the rest of the game. So Cedric Baxter, the starting running back for the Longhorns, good to go on Saturday. Should be good to go as he was back in practice on Monday. That's going to wrap things up for this episode of the Longhorn Mailbag. I want to thank you so much for joining us, as always, here on the Horns 24/7 YouTube channel. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Plus, turn on notifications so you're the first to know when new content drops. Once again, thanks for joining us. For the rest of the crew, I'm Tommy Yarsh, and we'll see you next time.